She gets in, we go like to the back office. She sits me down and she's like, so do you know about our policies regarding theft? And I was like, I know the basic policies, sure. Still have no idea what she's talking about. And she starts saying that basically I'm being accused of theft for Brooks Brothers. So she was like, you're being accused of theft for Brooks Brothers. And I said, how am I being accused of theft? Like, I don't steal anything at all. And if anything, I give back to the store way more than I would ever be willing to steal. Long story short, she fires me on the spot. And she says, yep, so since you did that, you are no longer allowed to work here. You're terminated immediately. You cannot come back tomorrow. And you owe us the money that would be the difference. I was thinking about this the other day, this kind of idea about good and bad, and how when we have certain circumstances in our lives or when certain things happen to us, how our perception of that circumstance is what makes that circumstance come true. And what I mean by that is sometimes you might be going through negative stuff. If you're watching this right now, you might actually be going through a negative situation or maybe a very stressful situation, something that's completely unexpected. And I guess what I want to suggest to you is try to perceive whatever situation you're going through right now, not as a negative, but as a positive. I think when you perceive the way you perceive something ultimately dictates how that thing turns out. So I kind of want to share a story to kind of illustrate this point. It's a story about me years ago kind of being in a pretty personally bad situation. Obviously, compared to many people in the entire planet, it's not the worst thing by far. I've heard way worse stories. But for me at this time, it was a pretty negative circumstance for me to be in. At least that's what I initially perceived it to be. And then when I kind of thought about it and as I kind of maintained a certain level of optimism and positivity, it ultimately turned out to be probably the best situation for me. So let me kind of get into the story. Hopefully by the end of this video, you kind of get the point that I'm making. And if you're in a situation right now where you feel like you're in a negative circumstance or you feel like you're going through tough times, hopefully this video can be of some benefit or value to you. Now, this story is from, I would say probably about 6-ish years ago, 5-ish years ago. This was sort of right after I graduated from college. For any of you watching right now that don't know, I went to Penn State. I spent extra time at Penn State. I've talked about this in different videos, but essentially the reason why I stayed longer at Penn State than normal, I was there for about 7 years. And I got kicked out twice. So both times were for financial reasons. I've talked about this in other videos in the past. I can make another video in the future kind of going deeper into it. If you like, I don't want to get super deep into it now to distract from the core components of the story. But yeah, I got kicked out twice, graduated a bit late. And once I graduated, I had some friends that lived in Northern Virginia. They pretty much said, hey, if you want to, you can live with us. We can split the rent. And in the meantime, you can just find a job. And my plan at the time was to go to law school in DC, which is why I moved to Northern Virginia, because I was going to stay for just like a semester, effectively the length of a semester in Northern Virginia, not studying. And then in the spring semester, start law school. That was the plan at least. So I moved down here, didn't have a job lined up, didn't have much money, like literally probably had like less than $100 in my bank account at the time. And I remember even trying to get like a key to move in was a bit of a hassle, a bit of a stress, which is probably, I guess, foreshadowing how my situation moving down here would have been, at least initially. And so when I first got here, I couldn't find a job. I tried reaching out to people, submitted tons of resumes. No one wanted to hire me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if my resume was just being filtered weird. I don't know if my credentials just weren't up to par with what companies were looking for. I don't think that was the case. I definitely think I was a lot more qualified than many people. But I don't know what it was, but no one was hiring me. And of course, because now I had to pay rent and split it with my roommates, I didn't have much time to waste. So my strategy was to kind of just walk around this. We have this outlet that I used to live next to. The strategy was to kind of walk around the outlet and just submit my resume or fill out an application wherever I can go and hope that one of these little stores would give me a job. That was my strategy in college, and I figured if it worked then, it might still work today, or at least at that time. So did that, and I found a job working at this store called Brooks Brothers. If you're not familiar, Brooks Brothers is sort of this high-end suit store. It's been around for a long time. I think it's one of the oldest retail stores in America. And they sell like high-end luxury suits. So got a job there, started working like right away. And for anyone that's never worked in retail, retail doesn't pay very much. Retail's a pretty bad place to work for a lot of reasons. But one of the main reasons is because they don't pay very well typically. And they also don't have consistent hours, which can be problematic if you need to have if you have rent to pay and fixed costs. You don't always get fixed income. So that was a huge problem. So when I was working there, essentially my paycheck every 2 weeks came to about $800. So I think I was making about $1,600 a month. Actually, a few years ago, like maybe 3 years ago, I was doing my taxes and I found my old W-2 from that year. And I think that year I made like $17,000 and change for the entire year, which to me was like hilarious that I was making so little money. Like I didn't really think about it that much at the time. Like I knew I was broke, but I didn't realize like how broke I really was. And for anyone watching who's not familiar with Northern Virginia, it is the wealthiest county in the like Loudoun County within Northern Virginia, which is where I lived, is the wealthiest county in all of America. It's like three of the wealthiest counties in America are all in the same vicinity. Loudoun County, I think, is number 1. I think Fairfax is like number 3. And I think Arlington County or something like that. There's pretty much all in the same area, just as a side note. So I say this because it's very expensive to live here. And $1,600 does not do very much for you. Somehow we made it work. But I was making about $1,600 a month working at Brooks Brothers, certainly living paycheck to paycheck, living way below paycheck to paycheck, if you want to even call it that, because I was perpetually in debt. By the time I paid my share of rent, by the time I tried to pay off some student loans, which were calling me every single day, just trying to like really beg for their money back. It's brutal how much they'll call you and harass you about student loan debt once you graduated. Like I had just graduated like 2 months or 3 months prior, and they were already calling me like nonstop, multiple times per day. But yeah, so I wasn't making much money, and at the time, I was still on the fence about if I wanted to even go to law school. I was getting into entrepreneurship because I had just kind of dipped my feet into that prior to graduating, and it was kind of on my mind. It was super motivating. It felt like a way out of my financial problems. So I was doing a dropshipping business. It was helping supplement my income, but it wasn't like fantastic. I wasn't balling out, of course. I think every month it was helping me get an additional like $100 or $200. Not very much, but it certainly helps when you're only making $1,600 each month. And I was also trying to get my real estate license because I heard real estate was an easy career. I heard that for the most part you get commission, so you can get like really big checks with not that much effort. Felt like it was a good way to separate my time from my income, which I knew from just reading a lot of books on finance and business. That was kind of like the strategy to really solve any financial problems you had. At least that was my thought at the time. So I was studying to get my real estate license. And kind of on the side, because like I mentioned, Brooks Brothers, their hours weren't consistent at all. Like some weeks I would work 38 hours, and then some weeks I would work like 25 hours, and then some weeks they'd only let me work like 15 hours. Super inconsistent. So I knew that I couldn't stick with just that one job, and I was still trying to submit my resume to a bunch of different companies, hoping that I can get a better job and make more money. For whatever reason, in Loudoun County at least, all the companies I submitted my resume to through like LinkedIn and through Indeed and through ZipRecruiter were just MLMs, terrible sales jobs, or just outright scams. All of them. I do not understand what it is about like Indeed and these like online companies that do job recruiting. They have a terrible filtering system, but that was pretty much my life at the time. I still remember, I actually want to share this quick story. I still remember submitting my resume to this one company, and I remember I was like super broke. I had like almost a negative bank account. I think I might have had like $30 in my account. Really pushing it, and I got so excited to even get like a response back. Like this one company called me. I remember being in my car. I think I went to get like groceries, and I was in my car. I got a call, and it wasn't a debt collector trying to get money from me for once. It was actually a career, I thought, trying to get me to come in for an interview. And the guy, it was this company called Vector, and he said to me, hey, you know, we have openings for a position here, And if you're interested, you can come in tomorrow at like 8 a.m. and, we'll do the interview and we'll see if we're a good fit. And then from there, we'll, call you back and see if you are able to work for us if we think that you're a good fit. And of course, for me working in retail, you don't have fixed hours. And if I don't work, I don't get paid. I had to work tomorrow, like early. So I had to call my manager and say, hey, I don't think I can come in. I didn't tell him I was looking for a different job, but I said like I couldn't come in because I had like a family emergency. I made up some excuse. Which sucked because I had like no money. I ended up driving there to Tyson's Corner. Again, if you're not from Northern Virginia, the distance between Leesburg, where I live, to Tyson's Corner might not mean much to you, but it was probably about a 30-ish minute drive. Keep in mind, I had this Hyundai Tucson at the time. It wasn't like a terrible car by any means, but it had its issues. Sometimes the car wouldn't start. Sometimes it had alternator issues. Sometimes it would it had a lot of like weird random issues. It was good enough, but not the most reliable vehicle. And if you're not from Northern Virginia, this might not mean much to you, but the distance from Leesburg, where I lived, to Tyson's Corner, which is where this job interview was like 30 minutes away. And like I mentioned, I had like almost no money in my account, so I couldn't really afford gas. But took the trip anyway, just crossing my fingers, being optimistic, made my way there. And the building was nice, but it felt weird because there were no cars in the parking lot. There was like one car. I go in, there was no one at the front desk. So I kind of just wandered in, took the elevator. I go upstairs to where the interview is supposed to take place. And there was like no one on the floor at all. Like none of the other companies on that floor were open. It was kind of dark. I felt like I was too early. I kept checking my phone to see if I was in the right place. I was in the right place. I kept checking to see if I was at the right floor and the right suite number. Everything was good. I remember knocking on like the company door because I thought it would be closed because it looked empty. And no one answered. And so I remember I was like, well, my interview starts in like 10 minutes because I got there early. I wanted to make a good impression. I was like, my interview starts in like 10 minutes. Let me just open it and see. Maybe I should just go in and see if anyone's there and maybe they can point me in the right direction. So I open the door and I go in and there's no one there. Like there's not a soul there. And it was so awkward because I was like, how is the office open but no one's here to like say hi or to greet me or where do I go? And I was in the right place. And I remember I kind of went in, there was kind of this like hallway in the suite and I just sat there. There were a bunch of chairs and I kind of sat there. There was a desk when you first walk in. There was no one at the desk. So I kind of sat there. I saw a few offices. There were no one at the offices. And I kind of just waited for a good like 10 minutes because my interview started in 10 minutes. And I remember seeing this like rat run by and I thought to myself like, what the fuck am I doing here? What is going on? Is this like a prank? Am I about to get set up? Am I about to get robbed? Because at this point, I'm getting sketched out. There's no one there. The interview at this point should have been starting, and I've yet to meet a single soul. There's no one around at all. Like, the lights are on, but there's no one here. And I remember, so I remember just, like, seeing the mouse, getting sketched out. I think I waited, like, 5 extra minutes, and I figured if no one comes in, I'll leave. And I remember like sitting there and calling. I called the number just to make sure that I was in the right place. The phone rang. I could hear the phones ringing, but no one was there. So I figured, you know what, this is like, maybe I'm getting set up, and I left. Sadly, I left with no prospect on a job. I had no idea why I was there. I was bummed out because I spent 30 minutes driving there for nothing, and I had to spend another 30 minutes going back with no potential career, no potential job, money lost. And remember, I took off that day too, so I also didn't make any money. So it was very depressing. So this was the nature of like most jobs. The few interviews I had at the time, this is pretty much how every interview was. They were either super sketchy or just outright sales or MLMs. Sometimes if I did have an interview and if there was someone there, they'd start to explain the business model and explain what my role would be at this job. And immediately I thought I could tell this is just a sales job. Like, I'm not going to be making any money here. I'm going to be spending money to even work here. There's no salary. There's no like W-2. There's no bi-weekly pay. It's all commissions, and it looked like horrible commissions. It was like some of them were like Cutco knives, but they had like an office building for it. It's like, why do you need an office for Cutco knives? Some of it was just door-to-door sales. None of them were good jobs. So I began to get very depressed at this time, as you can imagine, because I'm like really low in cash. I'm taking off from work just to go to these shitty job interviews that don't have any real benefits or anything to offer me. Now, I remember one time there was one call in particular that at this point I'm a bit jaded because I'm like making all these calls. I'm submitting my resume to all these places, and every company that's calling me is essentially like a scam or just essentially a waste of my time. And there was one call that came in, my gut just told me to take it. I was kind of like skeptical at first, and it's a law firm. And this law firm says, oh, we saw your website, because at the time I was doing drop shipping, like I mentioned. I also had my own website from back when I was in college. It was kind of like my personal portfolio. And I had my own blog on it where I was kind of just sharing my thoughts. And this law firm said, hey, we saw your resume. We saw that you were a criminology major. We saw that you wanted to go to law school, but you just haven't done it yet. And we saw your website, and we were impressed with your website. We were impressed with your credentials, and we wanted to have you in for an interview. So I came in for the interview. This was legitimate. This was in Leesburg, actually not very far from where I lived, probably about 10 minutes away. So not too far to drive, luckily. Met with the attorneys. It was an interview with 3 people, 2 attorneys and 1 legal assistant. A little bit intimidating, I'm not going to lie, but overall, a good interview, I thought. And I remember for a while, I didn't get a call back, like at all. I think I followed up with them to see if they were still interested, and they said, oh, we'll follow up with you. We're still looking at your resume, but once we do, we'll kind of let you know if you got the job. And I think for about a whole year, I didn't hear back from them. And so in my mind, of course, I feel way worse because I'm thinking to myself, every job I'm reaching out to seems to either be a scam or just I'm unable to get these careers. Like I'm just unable to get these jobs. I don't know what it is about me, but no one seems to want to hire me. So long story short, just kind of skip ahead a bit. Luckily for me, like a year or so later, that law firm did eventually call back, and they did say that they were impressed with the resume, they were impressed with the interview, they'd love to have me, and they were asking kind of when I'd be willing to start. Now, the problem with me, this is a big flaw that I have. I guess it's a good thing and a bad thing simultaneously. I'm extremely loyal to things. I'm loyal to careers that I've had. I'm loyal to employers that I've been employed under. I'm a very loyal person. I like the idea of loyalty. I think it's a great trait to have, but it can be a trait that sabotages you at times, and it certainly sabotaged me at this instance. So, like I mentioned, I was working at Brooks Brothers, and at the time I had a second job at American Eagle because I was trying to supplement my income. I was doing tutoring on the side, but tutoring was inconsistent. I should have dedicated way more time to tutoring, and that was a mistake that I made. I just didn't do it. And I remember Brooks Brothers was just steadily cutting my hours, just constantly cutting my hours or giving me like the worst shifts, and still, I was loyal. Now, I remember there was one weekend where my one roommate, his friend was coming up to visit. His friend had an interview in DC, and he stayed the night, and his plan was to kind of go, I think it was like a Saturday morning, he had a job interview. He came on like Thursday, we hung out for the Thursday and Friday, and his goal was to go to the interview on Saturday. But he was looking for clothes on Thursday, and I was working on Friday morning. So I said to him, if you don't find any clothes from wherever you're looking, wherever you're planning on going on Thursday, you can come to Brooks Brothers and I'll try to get you a good deal, and we'll try to get you some nice clothes. I'll fit you and make you look good for your job interview. So he couldn't find anything at the different stores. He comes into Brooks Brothers. Now, as a little bit of background, when I worked at Brooks Brothers, one of the main things that I did was I was one of the sales associates for suits. And the suit sales associates usually were a bit different from everyone else because the suits were kind of our high ticket item within the store. One suit at Brooks Brothers, at least where I worked, was about $495. And we usually had like a deal where if you get 2, it was like $600. And we always had sales goals that we were supposed to hit daily. So the idea was you only put people in the suits section that could sell the suits because, you sell like 2 to 4 suits per day. You're probably going to hit your sales goals. Plus you upsell them with like ties, shoes, socks, belts, shirts. By the time you get the suit and you start upselling people, you'll definitely hit your sales goals. And that was kind of my job to sell the suits because I was good at it. I would usually fit people, get them. I could like really at the time, I could see someone walk in and without even measuring them, know exactly what their size is. I could tell you if you were like a 38 regular, 42 long, just based on the way your physique was and based on how tall you were, consistently. Like I would get it right like every time. And I was good at like matching colors too. So I would help you get like the right color ties, the right color shirts. If you were a lawyer, I could help you get like maybe a navy blue suit that looked professional, but also stood out compared to the other attorneys who probably dressed like crap. Not to get super deep into it, but that was my role. And my friend came in. I told him, I get you a good suit. It'll look good for an interview. Plain navy blue with some with a nice brown belt, nice brown shoes. Hooked it up, upsold him. And like I mentioned, Brooks Brothers is expensive. And I don't think he realized how expensive it was. Of course, it was just for a job interview, so he probably didn't expect to break the bank. So he gets to the counter, and we go to ring him out, and it was expensive. It was a lot of money. And he said, "Oh, I can't afford this. This is a lot." And so I remember telling him, we have a employee discount. I'm happy to apply my employee discount if you're going to buy the suit, because it helps the store. It makes me look good, and you look good because you get to go to this job interview with a Brooks Brothers suit, which I'm sure no one else applying will have, which will probably guarantee you get the job. That was kind of my pitch at the time. And he agreed. I gave him my employee discount, and the employee discount was, I think it was about 60%. Now, this is kind of where I messed up, because me trying to be Mr. Good Guy, I let him use my employee discount. And the reason why I did this is because everyone uses their employee discounts on their friends. Everyone I knew that worked at Brooks Brothers either did it for themselves. Of course, you buy stuff for yourself. But really what people would do is if they had family and friends that wanted to buy Brooks Brothers, they would just come in the store and apply the discount when the person came in. Or they would just buy the clothes, like the employee would buy it themselves, apply the discount, and then just give it to their friends or sell it back to their friends for kind of like their own margin. They'd make their own profit from the sell, if that makes sense. So everyone did it. And I thought it was a bit harmless. I was like, oh, well, he wasn't going to buy the suit. During that particular day, we had no traffic. It was super dead, so we weren't going to hit our sales goals. And I figured, well, at least this will guarantee we hit our sales goals. Because keep in mind, he got the suit, but I also upsold him on a belt, some socks, a tie, and dress shirts. So he was getting extra stuff anyway. So yeah, at the time, I thought nothing of it. He was pretty happy, despite the price, which was still kind of expensive anyway, but he was still happy about it. I think he realized he looked good and he felt happy, which is good for a sale. He leaves, and I thought nothing of it. He went to his job interview. I saw him the next day. He said everything went well. He was super ecstatic. And yeah, I thought that was the end of it. Now, I think maybe about a week or two later, I go back to Brooks Brothers for my shift. It was a night shift. I think I came in at 6 p.m. or something, and I was supposed to close that day. I get in, and this lady's there, and she just looks mean. And my boss said, "Oh yeah, this lady wants to speak to you. She works in theft, and I forget the exact name of the department she was in, but it was theft and something in Jersey, which was the headquarters of Brooks Brothers." And she was my boss said, "Yeah, she's down to see you." And me still thinking nothing of it was excited, because I was oh, maybe I'll get a job. Maybe she'll recruit me to work in Jersey and I can work in the retail and theft department because I'm a criminology major. That'd be kind of cool. No, it wasn't like that at all. She gets in, we go to the back office. She sits me down and she's like, "So do you know about our policies regarding theft?" And I was like, "I know the basic policies, sure." Still have no idea what she's talking about. And she starts saying that basically I'm being accused of theft for Brooks Brothers. So she was like, "You're being accused of theft for Brooks Brothers." And I said, "How am I being accused of theft? I don't steal anything at all. And if anything, I give back to the store way more than I would ever be willing to steal." No, it was just a weird claim that she was making. Everyone at the store knew that I was one of those loyal people at Brooks Brothers. I always worked extra shifts. I was covered for people. I was literally the most loyal employee you could think of at Brooks Brothers. I was my boss's favorite employee. He literally would say, "Lenny's probably the most meticulous worker here," because even when I would fold clothes, I would make sure it's perfect and always in the right spot. I was super I was weird, almost anal about how things were in the store, as if it were my store, despite it not being my store and despite the company not really doing much for my financial situation. I was that loyal. So she says, I guess what happened was that my friend, after he purchased the clothing that I sold to him, he, at a later date, took it to a different Brooks Brothers and got a refund. And when they saw it, when he went to go for the refund, I guess because he went to a different store, the refund he would have received was higher than the amount he paid because he got the employee discount. But in their system, because he went to a different store, it would have refunded it at the retail rate, which was a lot higher than what he paid, of course. And that caused a flag in their system. And it's, from what I gather, they probably thought he was going to just sell it back and pocket the excess, like it was like a scam. Apparently it was a scam that a lot of people used to do with Brooks Brothers stuff, which I was not aware of. So she pretty much accused me of theft, and she was like, yeah, basically he did this and he got the money back, the excess, so you're responsible for paying the excess amount. Which is kind of funny because it's like, how am I responsible for it? You guys could have just discounted the amount. Like, you could have just reimbursed him the amount he paid, not the original retail value, but I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Long story short, she fires me on the spot and she says, yep, so since you did that, you are no longer allowed to work here. You're terminated immediately. You cannot come back tomorrow, and you owe us the money that would be the difference. And I think at the time, and this is me just accidentally doing something, I guess, correctly, she was asking me information about like my social and stuff like that. And I gave her a social because I didn't realize, like, I didn't even think about it. I think what they were going to do is just send it to collections like directly, or make me like financially responsible for it, for the excess. And I gave her my wrong social by mistake. Like, I didn't mean to do it. So I never had to pay for it, thankfully, because I don't think I should be responsible for paying for it. Brooks Brothers is a multi-million-dollar company. You barely even pay me. You barely give me shifts, barely give me hours. So why should I have to pay this extra money? That should be their responsibility for just having bad policies. But anyway, they fired me. In a weird way, so basically, once they fired me, I was a little bit of it was a combination of happy, mad, and sad. But I kind of realized pretty quickly that the good thing about being fired was that now I have so much more free time to work at a different company or put more effort into job hunting as quickly as possible. And luckily, the law firm was still willing to take me in. I think like that next week or like 2 weeks later was my first shift. They were happy to have me. The benefits were way better. Like, I actually had insurance. I got 40-hour work week. The job was super close. I think my income was at least triple. Yeah, definitely more than triple what I was making at Brooks Brothers and American Eagle, because I worked at American Eagle as well, combined. It was way better. I remember quitting my job at American Eagle. The manager was actually happy for me. She was like, I don't know why you were working here in the first place. You were overqualified to work at American Eagle, but I'm happy you're leaving. Even though you're a great employee, you just don't belong here. Like, there's other things you could be doing. So she understood completely, which was fantastic. And yeah, my life got significantly better once I started working at the law firm. The money was better, the benefits were better, the people were nice. The people were nice at Brooks Brothers and American Eagle too. But the law firm was fantastic. I had my own office. It was just much better. I felt so much happier working there than when I was working in retail. So the reason why I share this super long-winded story with you is because if you're in a circumstance that seems negative, or if it seems like bad things are happening to you, you don't have to perceive it that way. There could be sort of a silver lining at the end of whatever this bad circumstance is. There could be some positives to this negative place that you're in. That's kind of the way I see it. I've said before that good and bad don't really exist. It's just a matter of perspective. And I think this is a story to kind of demonstrate that point. What I could have done is been super depressed about my situation. I could have been super depressed that I got fired. And I could have, in a panic, tried to get another job at a different retail store, which would have only repeated that same process. Luckily, the law firm was still willing to take me in. And luckily, instead of just getting super depressed about it, I made a good rational decision and just decided to work at the company that was willing to take me in, like that was happily willing to take me in. My biggest mistake, I should have not been as loyal as I was. I should have just quit much earlier, and I wouldn't have had to have even gone through that in the first place. But it is what it is. It's a good learning experience. I do not regret it because I wouldn't be able to share the story with you had I not gone through that experience. But that's kind of the overall point of this video. I just wanted to share the story. If you're going through a negative situation, if you're having tough times, don't see it as that. It could be a beneficial circumstance. You just need to perceive it that way. So hopefully this video made sense. Hopefully it wasn't too long-winded and too boring. Let me know if you got any value from this video. If you did get something out of this video, like the video, leave a comment below, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out. Bye.